Now, as workers were finding success with the unions, there was another movement going on. And this union was known as the Progressive Movement. Now, this wasn't like one mass effort of a specific group of people. People who are known as progressives saw conditions in the United States benefiting not the people of the United States, but building the people, bettering the people who were running the factories, the politicians who were in power, the factory owners, all the big people, not the small people. So people who were progressives wanted to change society to better benefit all Americans, not just the luckiest few amongst us. So the progressive movement sought to reform the economic, political, and social systems of the United States through government regulation and oversight. And I know government regulation sounds like a bad thing to some people, but it was very much necessary here, because think, like, if people kept working in conditions like we were seeing in factories in the 1800s, then it would be a very one-sided society where the poor stayed very poor and the wealthy stayed insanely wealthy. So why are the progressives doing what they're doing? What are their outcomes that they're looking for? Well, they wanted to go up against the formation of trusts and monopolies and exploitation of natural resources. People like Rockefeller, he owned all the oil. Now, to have a monopoly or a trust on oil means you own most of the oil supply, which would force out competition, which means you could charge whatever price you wanted for oil. If there's competition, then you're competing with them, you got to lower your prices. Now, Rockefeller, in his processing plants, there was also no there's no protection of natural resources. So he could dump whatever cast off or chemicals he wanted to in rivers and get away with it. The Monongahela River in Ohio caught on fire because there were so many chemicals getting pumped into it. Now, the politicians, we didn't get really a chance to talk about them. They were also very, very corrupt. The big businessmen were sometimes bribing and offering favors to politicians so they'd look the other way and allow the big businessmen to keep doing what they were doing. Some politicians formed political machines and would maintain power through bribes and voter intimidation. Now, once a corrupt politician got in office, they would hire their buddies, give them government contracts, make their friends wealthy, but not necessarily people they represent. Politicians would also use bribes to get people to do what they want them to do, and they would hire thugs that would intimidate people into voting a certain way. If the politician stayed in power, then they can keep getting kickbacks, they can keep getting bribes from the companies that want them to turn a blind eye. Now, the progressives also wanted to tackle social injustice, so eliminating child labor, improving living conditions. They wanted consumer protection. They wanted racial, gender, and ethnic equality. So their goals, 3 simple points: increase economic opportunity, increase democracy, make the government work for the most, not the few. They wanted to increase social justice. They wanted to make sure that people were treated fairly and safely.